You are listening to PastThink.com audiobook. Please like and subscribe, thank you. 22. 8 Rules fights fiercely at the flowing sand river. Mocha by order receives Wu Cheng'en's submission. Now we tell you about the Tang monk and his disciples, the 3 travelers, who were delivered from their ordeal. In less than a day they passed the Yellow Wind Mountain and proceeded toward the west through a vast level plain. Time went by swiftly, and summer yielded to the arrival of autumn. All they saw were some cold cicadas sing on dying willows as the great fire rolls toward the west. As they proceeded, they came upon a huge and turbulent river, its waves surging and splashing. "Disciples," exclaimed Tripitaka, "look at that vast expanse of water in front of us. Why are there no boats in sight? How can we get across?" Taking a close look, 8 Rules said, "It's very turbulent, too rough for any boat." Pilgrim leaped into the air and peered into the distance, shading his eyes with his hand. Even he became somewhat frightened and said, "Master, it's truly hard. Truly hard. If old monkey wishes to cross this river, he need only make one twist of his body, and he will reach the other shore. But for you, master, it's 1,000 times more difficult, for you can't traverse it even in 10,000 years." "I can't even see the other shore from here," said Tripitaka. "Really, how wide is it?" "It's just about 800 miles wide," said Pilgrim. "Elder brother," said 8 Rules, "how could you determine its width just like that?" "To tell you the truth, worthy brother," said Pilgrim, "these eyes of mine can determine good or evil up to 1,000 miles away in daylight. Just now when I was up in the air, I could not tell how long the river was, but I could make out its width to be at least 800 miles. Sighing anxiously, the elder pulled back his horse and suddenly discovered on the shore a slab of stone. When the 3 of them drew closer to have a look, they saw 3 words written in seal script, "Flowing Sand River," below which there were also 4 lines written in regular style. It read, "These flowing sand meets, 800 wide. These weak waters, 3,000 deep. A goose feather cannot stay afloat. A rush petal will sink to the bottom." As master and disciples were reading the inscription, the waves in the river suddenly rose like tall mountains, and with a loud splash from the midst of the waters a monster sprang out. Looking most savage and hideous, he had a head full of tousled and flame-like hair, a pair of bright, round eyes which shone like lamps, an indigo face, neither black nor green, an old dragon's voice like thunderclap or drum. He wore a cape of light yellow goose down, 2 strands of white reeds tied around his waist. Beneath his chin 9 skulls were strung and hung. His hands held an awesome priestly staff. Like a cyclone, the fiend rushed up to the shore and went straight for the Tang monk. Pilgrim was so taken aback that he grabbed his master and dashed for high ground to make the escape. Putting down the pole, 8 Rules whipped out his rake and brought it down hard on the monster. The fiend used his staff to parry the blow, and so the 2 of them began to unleash their power on the bank of the flowing sand river. This was some battle. The 9-pronged rake. The fiend routing staff. These 2 met in battle on the river shore. This one was the marshal of heavenly reeds. That one was the curtain-raising captain by the throne. In years past they met in divine Mist's hall. Today they fought and waged a test of might. From this one the rake went out like a dragon stretching its claws. From that one the staff blocked the way like a sharp-tusked elephant. They stood with their limbs outstretched. Each struck at the other's rib cage. This one raked madly, heedless of head or face. That one struck wildly without pause or rest. This one was a cannibal spirit, long a lord of flowing sand. That one was a way-seeking fighter upholding law and faith. Closing in again and again, the 2 of them fought for 20 rounds, but neither emerged the victor. The great sage meanwhile was standing there to protect the Tang monk. As he held the horse and guarded the luggage, he became so aroused by the sight of 8 Rules engaging that fiend that he ground his teeth and rubbed his hands vehemently. Finally he could not restrain himself. Whipping out the rod, he said, "Master, sit here and don't be afraid. Let old monkey go play with him a little." The master begged in vain for him to stay, and with a loud whoop he leaped forward. The monster, you see, was just having a grand time fighting with 8 Rules, the two of them so tightly locked in combat that nothing seemed able to part them. Pilgrim, however, rushed up to the monster and delivered a terrific blow at his head with his iron rod. The monster was so shaken that he jumped aside. Turning around he dove straight into the flowing sand river and disappeared. 8 Rules was so upset that he leaped about wildly, crying, "Elder brother, who asked you to come?" The monster was gradually weakening, and was finding it difficult to parry my rake. Another 4 or 5 rounds and I would have captured him. But when he saw how fierce you were, he fled in defeat. "Now, what shall we do?" "Brother," said Pilgrim laughing, "to tell you the truth, since defeating the yellow wind fiend a month ago, I have not played with my rod all this time after leaving the mountain. When I saw how delicious your fight with him was, I couldn't stand the itch beneath my feet. That's why I jumped up here to have some fun with him. That monster doesn't know how to play, and I suppose that's the reason for his departure." Holding hands and teasing each other, the two of them returned to the Tang monk. "Did you catch the monster?" asked the Tang monk. "He didn't last out the fight," said Pilgrim, and he scrambled back to the water in defeat. "Disciple," said Tripitaka, "since this monster has probably lived here a long time, he ought to know the deep and the shallow parts of the river. After all, such a boundless body of weak water, and not a boat in sight, we need someone who is familiar with the region to lead us across." "Exactly," said Pilgrim. "As the proverb says, he who's near cinnabar turns red. He who's near ink becomes black. The monster living here must have a good knowledge of the water. When we catch him, we should not slay him, but just make him take master across the river before we dispose of him." "Elder brother," said 8 Rules, "no need for further delay. You go ahead and catch him, while Old Hog guards our master." "Worthy brother," said Pilgrim with a laugh, "in this case I've really nothing to brag about, for I'm just not comfortable doing business in water. If all I do is walk around down there, I still have to make the magic sign and recite the water-repelling spell before I can move anywhere. Or else I have to change into a water creature like a fish, shrimp, crab, or turtle before going in. If it were a matter of matching wits in the high mountains or up in the clouds, I know enough to deal with the strangest and most difficult situation. But doing business in water somewhat cramps my style." "When I was Marshal of the Heavenly River in former years," said 8 Rules, "I commanded a naval force of 80,000 men, and I acquired some knowledge of that element. But I fear that monster may have a few relatives down there in his den, and I won't be able to withstand him if his 7th and 8th cousins all come out. What will happen to me then if they grab me?" "If you go into the water to fight him," said Pilgrim, "don't tarry. Make sure, in fact, that you feign defeat and entice him out here. Then old monkey will help you." "Right you are," said 8 Rules. "I'm off." He took off his blue silk shirt and his shoes. Holding the rake with both hands, he divided the waters to make a path for himself. Using the ability he had developed in bygone years, he leaped through billows and waves and headed for the bottom of the river. We now tell you about that monster, who went back to his home in defeat. He had barely caught his breath when he heard someone pushing water, and as he rose to take a look, he saw 8 Rules pushing his way through with his rake. That monster lifted his staff and met him face to face, crying, "Monk, watch where you are going or you'll receive a blow from this." Using the rake to block the blow, 8 Rules said, "What sort of a monster are you that you dare to bar our way?" "So you don't recognize me," said the monster. "I'm no demon or fiend, nor do I lack a name or surname." "If you are no demon or fiend," said 8 Rules, "why do you stay here and take human lives? Tell me your name and surname, and I'll spare your life." The monster said, "My spirit was strong since the time of birth. I once made a tour of the universe. where my fame as a hero became well known. A gallant type for all to emulate. Through countless nations I went as I pleased. Over lakes and seas I did freely roam. To learn the way I strayed to heaven's edge. To find a teacher I stumped this great earth. For years my clothes and alms bowl went with me. Not for one day did my spirit turn lax. For scores of times I cruised cloud-like the earth. And walked to all places 100 times. Only then a true immortal I did meet. Who showed me the great path of golden light. I took back baby boy and fair girl first, too. Then released wood mother and squire of gold. 3. Bright halls for kidney brine flooded floral pool, 5. The tower's 6 liver fire plunged to the heart. 3,000 merits done, I saw heaven's face. And solemnly worshipped the point of light. Then the Jade Emperor exalted me. The curtain-raising captain he made me. An honored one in South Heaven Gate. I was much esteemed at divine Mist's hall. I hung at my waist the tiger-headed shield. I held in my hands the fiend-routing staff. Just like the sunlight my gold helmet shone. My body's armor flashed like radiant mists. I was chief of the guardians of the throne. I was first as attendant of the court. When Queen Mother gave the festival of peach, she served her guests at Jasper Pool a feast. I dropped and broke a glass-like cup of jade. And souls from all the hosts of heaven fled. Jade Emperor grew mightily enraged. Hands clasped, he faced his council on the left. Stripped of my hat, my armor, and my rank. I had my whole body pushed to the block. Only the great immortal, naked feet, came from the ranks and begged to have me freed. Pardoned from death and with my sentence stayed. I was sent to the shores of flowing sand. Sated, I lie wearily in the stream. Famished, I churn the waves to find my feed. The woodsman sees me and his life is gone. The fishers face me and they soon perish. From first to last I've eaten many men. Over and over I took human lives. Since you dare to work violence at my door, my stomach this day has its fondest hopes. Don't say you're too coarse to be eaten now. I'll catch you, and look, that's my minced meat sauce. Infuriated by what he heard, 8 Rules shouted, you brazen thing. You haven't the slightest perception. Old hog is tempting enough to make people's mouths water, and you dare say that I'm coarse, that I'm to be chopped up for a chopped meat sauce. Come to think of it, you would like to consider me a piece of tough old bacon. Watch your manners and swallow this rake of your ancestor. When the monster saw the rake coming, he used the style of the phoenix nodding its head to dodge the blow. The two of them thus fought to the surface of the water, each one treading the waters and waves. This conflict was somewhat different from the one before. Look at the curtain-raising captain, the marshal of heavenly reeds, each showing most nicely his magic might. This one waved above his head the fiend-routing staff. That one moved the rake as swiftly as his hand. The vaulting waves rocked hills and streams. The surging tide the cosmos dimmed. Savage like Jupiter wielding banners and flags. Fierce like hell's envoy upsetting sacred tops. This one guarded the Tang monk devotedly. That one, a water fiend, perpetrated his crimes. The rake's one stroke would leave 9 red marks. The staff's one blow would dissolve man's soul. They strove to win the fight. They struggled to prevail. All in all for the scripture pilgrim's sake. They vented their fury without restraint. They brawled till carps and perches lost their newborn scales. And all turtles damaged their tender shells. Red shrimps and purple crabs all lost their lives. and sundry water gods all upward bowed. You heard only the waves rolled and crashed like thunderclaps. The world amazed saw sun and moon grow dark. The two of them fought for 2 hours, and neither prevailed. It was like a brass pan meeting an iron broom, a jade gong facing a golden bell. We now tell you about the great sage, who was standing guard beside the Tang monk. With bulging eyes he watched them fighting on the water, but he dared not lift his hands. Finally, 8 Rules made a half-hearted blow with his rake and, feigning defeat, turned to flee toward the eastern shore. The monster gave chase, and was about to reach the river bank when our pilgrim could no longer restrain himself. He abandoned his master, whipped out the iron rod, leaped to the riverside and struck at the monster's head. Fearing to face him, the monster swiftly dove back into the river. "You ban horse plague," shouted 8 Rules. "You impulsive ape. Can't you be a bit more patient? You could have waited until I led him up to high ground, and then blocked his path to the river. We would have caught him then. Now he has gone back in, and when do you think he'll come out again?" "Idiot," said Pilgrim laughing, "stop shouting. Let's go talk to Master first." 8 Rules went with Pilgrim back to high ground to Tripitaka. "Disciple," said Tripitaka, bowing, "you must be tired." "I won't complain about my fatigue," said 8 Rules. "Let's subdue the monster, and take you across the river. Only that plan is perfect." Tripitaka said, "How did the battle go with the monster just now?" "He was just about my equal," said 8 Rules, "and we fought to a draw. But then I feigned defeat, and he chased me up to the bank. When he saw elder brother lifting his rod, however, he fled." "So what are we going to do?" asked Tripitaka. "Master, relax," said Pilgrim. "Let's not worry now, for it's getting late. You sit here on the cliff, and let old monkey go beg some vegetarian food. Take some rest after you eat, and we'll find a solution tomorrow." "You are right," said 8 Rules. "Go and come back quickly." Pilgrim swiftly mounted the clouds and went north to beg a bowl of vegetarian food from a family to present to his master. When the master saw him return so soon, he said, "Wukong, let us go to that household which gave us the food and ask them how we may cross this river. Isn't this better than fighting the monster?" With a laugh, Pilgrim said, "That household is quite far from here, about 6 or 7,000 miles, no less. How could the people there know about the water? What's the use of asking them?" "You are fibbing again, elder brother," said 8 Rules. 6 or 7,000 miles, how could you cover that distance so quickly?" "You have no idea," said Pilgrim, "about the capacity of my cloud somersault, which with one leap can cover 108,000 miles. For the 6 or 7,000 here, all I have to do is to nod my head and stretch my waist, and that's a round trip already. What's so hard about that?" "Elder brother," said 8 Rules, "if it's so easy, all you need to do is to carry master on your back, nod your head, stretch your waist, and jump across. Why continue to fight this monster?" "Don't you know how to ride the clouds?" asked Pilgrim. "Can't you carry him across the river?" "The mortal nature and worldly bones of master are as heavy as the Tai mountain," 8 Rules said. "How could my cloud soaring bear him up? It has to be your cloud somersault." "My cloud somersault is essentially like cloud soaring," said Pilgrim, "the only difference being that I can cover greater distances more rapidly. If you can't carry him, what makes you think I can? There's an old proverb that says, 'Move Mount Tai, it's light as mustard seeds. Lift a man and you won't leave the red dust.' Take this monster here, he can use spells and call upon the wind, pushing and pulling a little, but he can't carry a human into the air. And if it's this kind of magic, old monkey knows every trick well, including becoming invisible and making distances shorter. But it is required of master to go through all these strange territories before he finds deliverance from the sea of sorrows, hence even one step turns out to be difficult. You and I are only his protective companions, guarding his body and life, but we cannot exempt him from these woes, nor can we obtain the scriptures all by ourselves. Even if we had the ability to go and see Buddha first, he would not bestow the scriptures on you and me. Remember the adage. What's easily gotten is soon forgotten. When Idiot heard these words, he accepted them amiably as instruction. Master and disciples ate some of the simply prepared vegetarian food before resting on the eastern shore of the flowing sand river. The next morning, Tripitaka said, "Wu Cheng'en, what are we going to do today?" "Not much," said Pilgrim, "except that 8 rules must go into the water again." "Elder brother," said 8 rules, "you only want to stay clean, but you have no hesitation making me go into the water." "Worthy brother," said Pilgrim, "this time I'll try not to be impulsive. I'll let you trick him into coming up here, and then I'll block his retreat along the river bank. We must capture him. Dear 8 rules." Wiping his face, he pulled himself together. Holding the rake in both hands, he walked to the edge of the river, opened up a path in the water, and went to the monster's home as before. The monster had just wakened from his sleep when he heard the sound of water. Turning quickly to look, he saw 8 rules approaching with the rake. He leaped out at once and barred the way, shouting, "Slow down. Watch out for my staff." 8 rules lifted his rake to parry the blow, saying, "What sort of morning staff do you have there that you dare ask your ancestor to watch out for it?" "A fella like you," said the monster, "wouldn't recognize this. For years my staff has enjoyed great fame. At first an evergreen tree in the moon. Wu Gang 7 cut down from it one huge limb. Lu Ban then made it, using all his skills. Within the hub's one solid piece of gold. Outside it's wrapped by countless pearly threads. It's called the treasure staff for crushing fiends. Air placed in divine mists to quell the ogres. Since I had made a mighty general's rank. Jade Emperor put it always by my side. It lengthens or shortens after my desire. It grows thick or thin with my command. It went to guard the throne at the Peaches Feast. It served at court in heaven's world above. On duty it saw the many sages bowed. And immortals too, when the screen rolled up. Of numinous power one arm divine. It's no worldly weapon of humankind. Since I was banished from the gate of Heaven. It roamed with me at will beyond the seas. Perhaps it is not right for me to boast. But swords and spears of man can't match this staff. Look at that old, rusted muckrake of yours. Fit only for hoeing fields and raking herbs. You unchastened brazen thing, said 8 rules, laughing. Never mind whether it's fit for hoeing fields. One little touch and you won't even know how to begin putting bandages or ointment on 9 bleeding holes. Even if you are not killed, you will grow old with chronic infection. The monster raised his hands and again fought with 8 rules from the bottom of the river up to the surface of the water. This battle was even more different from the first one. Look at them. Wielding the treasure staff. Striking with muckrake. They would not speak as if they were estranged. Since would mother constrained the spatula, 8. That caused the 2 to fight most fiercely. No win or loss. With no regret. They churned up waves and billows with no peace. How could this one control his bitter rage? That one found unbearable his pain. Rake and staff went back and forth to show their might. The water rotted like poison in flowing sand. They huffed and puffed. They worked and toiled. All because Tripitaka would face the west. The muckrake so ferocious. The staff so nimbly used. This one made a grab to pull him up the shore. That one sought to seize and drown him in the stream. They roared like thunder, stirring dragon and fish. Gods and ghosts cowered as the heavens grew dim. This time they fought back and forth for 30 rounds, and neither one proved to be the stronger. Again 8 rules pretended to be defeated and fled, dragging his rake. Kicking up the waves, the monster gave chase, and they reached the edge of the river. Wretch, cried 8 Rules. Come up here. We can fight better on solid ground up here. You are just trying to trick me into going up there, scolded the monster, so that you can bring out your assistant. You come down here, and we can fight in the water. The monster, you see, had become wise. He refused to go up to the bank and remained near the edge of the water to argue with 8 Rules. When Pilgrim saw that the monster refused to leave the water, he became highly irritated, and all he could think of was to catch him at once. Master, he said, you sit here. Let me give him a taste of the ravenous eagle seizing his prey. He somersaulted into the air, and then swooped down onto the monster, who was still bickering with 8 Rules. When he heard the sound of the wind, he turned quickly and discovered Pilgrim hurtling down from the clouds. Putting away his staff, he dove into the water and disappeared. Pilgrim stood on the shore and said to 8 Rules, Brother, that monster is catching on. He refuses to come up now. What shall we do? It's hard, terribly hard, said 8 Rules. I just can't beat him, even when I summoned up the strength of my milk-drinking days. We are evenly matched. Let's go talk to Master, said Pilgrim. The two of them went up again to high ground and told the Tang monk everything. If it's so difficult, said the elder, tears welling up in his eyes, how can we ever get across? Master, please don't worry, said Pilgrim. It is hard for us to cross with this monster hiding deep in the river. So, don't fight with him any more, 8 Rules, just stay here and protect Master. I'm going to make a trip up to South Sea. Elder brother, said 8 Rules, what do you want to do at South Sea? Pilgrim said, this business of seeking scriptures originated from the Bodhisattva Guanyin. The one who delivered us from our ordeals was also the Bodhisattva Guanyin. Today our path is blocked at this flowing sand river, and we can't proceed. Without her, how can we ever solve our problem? Let me go ask her to help us. It's much better than doing battle with this monster. You have a point there, elder brother, said 8 Rules. When you get there, please convey my gratitude to her for her kindly instructions in the past. Wu Cheng'en, said Tripitaka, if you want to go see the Bodhisattva, you needn't delay. Go and hurry back. Pilgrim catapulted into the air with his cloud somersault and headed for the South Sea. It did not even take him half an hour before he saw the scenery of the Potalaka mountain. In a moment, he dropped down from his somersault and arrived at the edge of the purple bamboo grove, where he was met by the spirits of the 24 ways. They said to him, Great sage, what brings you here? My master faces an ordeal, said Pilgrim, which brings me here specially to see the Bodhisattva. Please take a seat, said the spirits, and allow us to make the announcement. One of the spirits who was on duty went to the entrance of the Tidal Sound Cave, announcing, Sun Wukong wishes to have an audience with you. The Bodhisattva was leaning on the rails by the treasure lotus pool, looking at the flowers with the pearl-bearing dragon princess. When she heard the announcement, she went back to the cave, opened the door, and asked that he be shown in. With great solemnity, the great sage prostrated himself before her. Why are you not accompanying the Tang monk? Asked the Bodhisattva. For what reason did you want to see me again? Bodhisattva, said Pilgrim, looking up at her, my master took another disciple at the Gao village, to whom you had given the religious name of Wuning. After crossing the Yellow Wind Ridge, we have now arrived at the flowing sand river 800 miles wide, a body of weak water, which is difficult for master to get across. There is, moreover, a monster in the river who is quite accomplished in the martial arts. We are grateful to Wuning, who fought in the water with him 3 times, but could not beat him. The monster is, in fact, blocking our path, and we cannot get across. That is why I have come to see you, hoping you will take pity and grant us deliverance. Monkey, said the Bodhisattva, are you still acting so smug and self-sufficient that you refuse to disclose the fact that you are in the service of the Tang monk? All we had intended to do, said Pilgrim, was to catch the monster and make him take master across the river. I am not too good at doing business in the water, so Wuning went down alone to his lair to look for him, and they had some conversation. I presume the matter of scripture seeking was not mentioned. That monster in the flowing sand river, said the Bodhisattva, happens to be the incarnate curtain-raising captain, who was also brought into the faith by my persuasion when I told him to accompany those on their way to acquire scriptures. Had you been willing to mention that you were a scripture pilgrim from the land of the East, he would not have fought you, he would have yielded instead. Pilgrim said, that monster is afraid to fight now, he refuses to come up to the shore, and is hiding deep in the water. How can we bring him to submission? How can my master get across this body of weak water? The Bodhisattva immediately called for Huyen. Taking a little red gourd from her sleeves, she handed it over to him, saying, take this gourd and go with Sun Wukong to the flowing sand river. Call Wu Jing, and he'll come out at once. You must first take him to submit to the Tang monk. Next, string together those 9 skulls of his and arrange them according to the position of the 9 palaces. Put this gourd in the center, and you will have a Dharma vessel ready to ferry the Tang monk across the boundary formed by the flowing sand river. Obeying the instructions of his master, Huyen left the tidal sound cave with the great sage carrying the gourd. As they departed the purple bamboo grove in compliance with the holy command, we have a testimonial poem. The 5 phases well matched as heaven's truth. His former master he can recognize. Refine the self as base for wondrous use. Good and bad discerned will reveal the cause. Metal returns to nature, the same kind are both. Wood begs for favor, they'll all be redeemed. 2 Earth's 9 completes merit to reach the void. Water and fire blended, dustless and clean. In a little while the 2 of them lowered their clouds and arrived at the flowing sand river. Recognizing the disciple Mocha, Zhu 8 Rules led his master to receive him. After bowing to Tripitaka, Mocha then greeted 8 Rules, who said, I was grateful to be instructed by your reverence so that I could meet the Bodhisattva. I have indeed obeyed the law, and I am happy recently to have entered the gate of Buddhism. Since we have been constantly on the road, I have yet to thank you. Please forgive me. Let's forget about these fancy conversations, said Pilgrim. We must go and call that fellow. Call whom? Asked Tripitaka. Pilgrim replied, Old Monkey saw the Bodhisattva, and gave her an account of what happened. The Bodhisattva told me that this monster in the flowing sand river happened to be the incarnation of the curtain-raising captain. Because he had sinned in heaven, he was banished to this river, and became a monster. But he was converted by the Bodhisattva, who had told him to accompany you to the western heaven. Since we did not mention the matter of seeking scriptures, he fought us bitterly. Now the Bodhisattva has sent Mocha with this gourd, which that fellow will turn into a Dharma vessel to take you across the river. When Tripitaka heard these words, he bowed repeatedly to Mocha, saying, I beseech your reverence to act quickly. Holding the gourd and treading half on cloud and half on fog, Mocha moved directly above the surface of the flowing sand river. He cried with a loud voice, Wu Jing. Wu Jing. The scripture pilgrim has been here for a long time. Why have you not submitted? We now tell you about that monster who, fearful of the Monkey King, had gone back to the bottom of the river to rest in his den. When he heard someone call him by his religious name, he knew that it had to be the Bodhisattva Guanyin. And when he heard, moreover, that the scripture pilgrim had arrived, he no longer feared the axe or the halberd. Swiftly he leaped out of the waves and saw that it was the disciple Mocha. Look at him. All smiles, he went forward and bowed, saying, Your Reverence, forgive me for not coming to meet you. Where is the Bodhisattva? My teacher did not come, said Mocha, but she sent me to tell you to become the disciple of the Tang monk without delay. You are to take the skulls around your neck and this gourd, and to fashion with them a Dharma vessel according to the position of the 9 palaces, so that he may be taken across this body of weak water. Where is the scripture pilgrim? Asked Wu Jing. Pointing with his finger, Mocha said, Isn't he the one sitting on the eastern shore? Wu Jing caught sight of 8 Rules and said, I don't know where that lawless creature came from. He fought with me for 2 whole days, never once saying a word about seeking scriptures. When he saw Pilgrim, he said again, That customer is his assistant, and a formidable one too. I'm not going over there. That is Zhu 8 Rules, said Mocha, and that other one is Pilgrim's son, both disciples of the Tang monk, and both converted by the Bodhisattva. Why fear them? I'll escort you to the Tang monk. Only then did Wu Jing put away his precious staff and straighten his yellow silk shirt. He jumped ashore and knelt before Tripitaka, saying, Master, your disciple has eyes but no pupils, and he failed to recognize your noble features. I have greatly offended you, and I beg you to pardon me. You bum, said 8 Rules. Why did you not submit in the first place? Why did you only want to fight with me? What do you have to say for yourself? Brother, said Pilgrim, laughing, don't berate him. It's really our fault for not mentioning that we were seeking scriptures, and we didn't tell him our names. Are you truly willing to embrace our faith? Said the elder. Your disciple was converted by the Bodhisattva, said Wu Jing. Deriving my surname from the river, she gave me the religious name Sha Wu Jing. How could I be unwilling to take you as my master? In that case, said Tripitaka, Wukong may bring over the sacred razor and shave off his hair. The great sage indeed took the razor and shaved Wu Jing's head, after which he came again to pay homage to Tripitaka, Pilgrim, and 8 Rules, thus becoming the youngest disciple of the Tang monk. When Tripitaka saw that he comported himself very much like a monk, he gave him the nickname of Sha Monk. Since you have embraced the faith, said Mocha, there's no need for further delay. You must build the Dharma vessel at once. Not daring to delay, Wu Jing took off the skulls around his neck and strung them up with a rope after the design of the 9 palaces, placing the gourd in the middle. He then asked his master to leave the shore, and our elder thus embarked on the Dharma vessel. As he sat in the center, he found it to be as sturdy as a little boat. He was, moreover, supported by 8 Rules on his left and Wu Jing on his right, while Pilgrim's son, leading the dragon horse, followed in the rear, treading half on cloud and half on fog. Above their heads Mocha also took up his post to give them added protection. In this way our master of the law was safely ferried across the boundary of the flowing sand river, with the wind calm and waves quiet he crossed the weak water. It was truly as fast as flying or riding an arrow, for in a little while he reached the other shore, having been delivered from the mighty waves. He did not drag up mud or water, and happily both his hands and feet remained dry. In sum, he was pure and clean without engaging in any activity. When master and disciples reached solid ground again, Mocha descended from the auspicious clouds. As he took back his gourd, the 9 skulls changed into 9 curls of dark wind and vanished. Tripitaka bowed to thank Mocha, and also gave thanks to the Bodhisattva. So it was that Mocha went straight back to the South Sea, while Tripitaka mounted his horse to go to the west. We do not know how long it took them to achieve the right fruit of scripture acquisition. Let's listen to the explanation in the next chapter. You are listening to PastThink.com audiobook. Please like and subscribe, thank you.